So I would not label it as something like a Gen Z flaw. I think they're a braver generation. So they're not, cowed down by, what their parents have told them. If you really have these other things inculcated, you stay alive and you thrive. The next is communication. And that's so vital these days. Whatever you do, we have the world's third largest reserve of thorium, big consumer of fossil fuels. And that's one of the biggest challenges really. Now, how do we back off the fossil component of it? And we can have clean gas for another 10 years. So it'll at least give some relief on emissions, but we have to stamp out carbon at some time and be ready for it. You will be good at something that you're passionately pursuing, but don't take yourself too seriously. The idea of Techfluence. What I really like about the vibe so far is that it's not being run as some massive initiative with scale and sponsorship and all of that, because that takes away a lot of the essence which is there, which you get only in this kind of conversations sitting together, where the messages and the conversations are a lot more personal, the physical distance.
Avijit, welcome to the show. We had been looking forward to this conversation since long time now. Let's begin with the question with the new generation today. So what's your opinion about Gen Z employees who resign minutes after they get their first payout?
So that's a question that can have many dimensions. But first of all, you mentioned I wear many hats. I really need the hats now.
Oh yes,
with the hairline receding, yes. But it's always been the case where the generation that's before us looks at us and doesn't approve of everything we do. Like our grandfather didn't like what our father did. Father didn't really approve everything I did. So I think there's a bit of condescension that's always there when you look at younger people and you think they really haven't got it all sorted out. So this is what I call generational condescension. But leaving that aside, what you're talking about is job mobility. And that's always been there. So my own classmate, in the first 14 years, I was with one company. In the same 14 years, he had changed 11 companies.
Oh my God.
So it was always there. I think it's just that there's more of those cases now. So that would be the difference. So I would not label it as something like a Gen Z flaw. I think they're a braver generation. So they're not, cowed down by, what their parents have told them, what the neighbors will think, or concepts like job security, which, still our generation, we had that. So they're not really constrained by those. So they're confident that they will go and get something. So they're less tolerant of something which they don't like. So to me, it's a change which is for the better, but the only catch is this. The jobs aren't really all that easy to get by. If you look at graduates not getting jobs, whether it is in India or in the US. So the only word I will add as a qualifier is, yes, don't stand for things which you don't like, which you don't approve of, but don't be hot-headed and just throw in a resignation at a whim. That would be my advice.
So, Avijit, in your opinion, what skills will be the most important for the next generation to thrive?
This again, there'll be so many opinions out there. So this is just me talking because I tend to distill things into a few small things rather than have a top 10. Mm-hmm. So I would put it as two attributes really. One is inquisitiveness and the other is communication. Now, inquisitiveness is so vital because, what you get in school or college is knowledge. A lot of it is theory, whereas real life is application of that knowledge. And the way things are changing, all that college and school knowledge will become redundant today a lot more quicker than in our generation.
Exactly.
So you have to be inquisitive. You must have, as a youngster, one or two topics that you feel really strongly about, you're passionate about, and you should really become the person in the room that knows the most on that topic, because that kind of depth actually is a sign of character and integrity. So be inquisitive, because without it, innovation is dead. Without challenging the status quo, you will start doing things in a routine way, that establish work processes. So very soon you will start to get bored. When you start to get bored, then you tend to think automatically of the negatives. Of this is not working, or this is not something that my organization is not doing for me. And then you gradually completely lose interest, and that's the end of everything. Whereas if you really have these other things inculcated, you stay alive and you thrive. The next is communication, and that's so vital these days. Regarding whatever you do, it is so vital, because if you do not have that, relationships break, teams don't perform. You just look at anything. Without communication, everything fails. Now, to me, communication is not about writing a long memo and a desktop guide and an approach paper, because with everything else that's happening in social media, people do not have the appetite to consume large volumes of information. So the communication has to be very brief. It has to be pointed. It has to be focused. It should take maybe one or two things. That's it. Whether it's a meeting or a video call, that's it. And then whoever is delivering that message should spend less time talking, more time listening, to see everybody has understood it and everybody is on the same page. And once that's validated, you're done. So two things: inquisitiveness and communication.
Communication needs to be crisp and clear.
Yeah.
That's how it needs to be.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
So, what opportunities and challenges do you foresee for India in the global energy transition?
It's a huge topic. And, right from my days when I was at my first job with EIL and all through, it's been something that I've been fortunate enough to have glimpses into, whether it's in the Indian administration or overseas. So India is a big country. It's not very united.
Yeah.
So we have divergence of opinions amongst political organizations. We have different cultures. We have policy making that is, this part of it is with the central government, part of it is with the state. We have a very complex mechanism of how tax and revenue is shared between states and governments. So it's not a very easy fix for anybody to come and say, okay, we have got it all sorted out.
Yeah.
Now, if I had the means and ways to do it, what I would concentrate on is getting India's civil nuclear liability, that thing sorted out, so that we can draw into the nuclear potential that we have. Lots of papers and everything out there, but the bottom line is this: we have the world's third largest reserve of thorium. Thorium is no use on its own. Thorium is of use when you get the plutonium at the end of the nuclear power plants fed into it, into fast breeder reactors, which is what the Bhavani reactor proved. So if we are able to tap into that, we have 700 gigawatts of energy sitting there that we have not drawn on, and that's all we needed. Now, it becomes very complex internationally, because uranium is a matter of great debate and something that India has to negotiate very hard to get access to feed into this. So nuclear to me is a solution that has not been pursued well enough. Solar we have done better, from just importing panels from outside and just bolting them. Today, big industry houses have put the full stack, just starting with sand and ending with panels, and we have installed a fair amount of solar capacity. So that's a good story. Wind is again difficult. Offshore wind has security aspects which are vulnerabilities for India. Onshore wind, if you look at the way the technology is moving rapidly, We are a little behind in establishing where we can have sustained production. So looking at options other than these, then people are naturally gravitating towards electric vehicles because that's one big consumer of fossil fuels. And that's one of the biggest challenges, really. Now, how do we back off the fossil component of it? And we can have clean gas for another 10 years. So it'll at least give some relief on emissions, but we have to stamp out carbon at some time and be ready for it. So electric vehicles, unfortunately, they require batteries, right?
Yeah.
And the batteries have elements, a lot of which we have to depend on other countries to give to us.
True.
Cobalt used to be the big no-no, but now we have options other than cobalt in the battery space. As a country, Japan has developed a solid-state technology for EVs, which we haven't.
Not.
And I would say that's something India should look at. There's a lot of talk about hydrogen in cars, and this is where, again, the public in general has not been educated well enough to distinguish between fuel cell hydrogen and hydrogen as a fuel, which is fired into a combustion engine. So in the second type, you get water vapor at the exhaust. Whereas fuel cell is ultimately a battery technology with a cell. So those are things where I think all this current conversation at hydrogen and how sustainable it is, it's very expensive today. The distribution network, the consumption mechanism, the infrastructure, all of it, I think all it needs is a big thing on the policy front to determine today where hydrogen will sit, rather than just have a few hydrogen powered cars come and say, okay, we are adopting new energy. So most of whatever I was talking about relates back to policy making, relates back to getting stakeholders and capital and international insurance, wherever it is to be underwritten in the nuclear program, for those to fall in place. And also for citizens to be aware that subsidies will not last. They may help make a beginning to these new technologies, but in the end, the citizens have to bear an incrementally higher cost for the sake of our country and for the sake of our planet.
Avijit, you have spent decades in EPC industry. How do you see digitalization, automation, and AI rephrasing in EPC industry?
I think shaping would be a good term to use here. Now, the way I see it is whatever we are delivering in the end is still concrete and steel and equipment and machinery and wires. Those aren't changing. But how you reach that point is how all these enablers are changing the whole process, which is supposed to make it more efficient, make it error proof, eliminate human error. Now, I think the crux is to be able to use all the features of these new tools. It's like a Sony television set. You would have one for 8 years and find out, oh, there is something else there I did not know about. So a lot of the utility of these tools would be for the users to be using it just to the right levels, to always know that it is an enabler, that whatever all these tools provide in front of you, it still has to be validated with physical laws, with human experience, and with what I call common sense, which just seems to be less and less available of late. And for companies, EPC companies, to invest in making these tools friendly to the users that will use them in their companies or organizations. So they have to be customized quite a bit. And they have to be educating their users that whatever these bring in front of you, you have to still do a sanity check. Now, I've actually seen a person quarrel with ChatGPT
Yes.
during a conversation. So, yeah, I mean, You have to bring it down from that pedestal so that you use it for what it is supposed to be. Things which are within a domain or a volume of data, and you're doing complicated algorithms to interpolate and come out with a conclusion, great. When it extrapolates and it becomes conversational, you have to watch out for what it might mislead you on. So if enterprises invest well enough, then yes, it can take away a lot of the tasks which are rules-based, which can be put into a framework, which can be automated, which AI can then use to enrich with information so that the output is a lot more informed, so that human beings can do more of what they are supposed to do, which is exercise human intelligence.
To recheck the things.
Yeah, keep it grounded, keep it real, bring it down from the pedestal. I mean, these days we have people doing their holiday schedules on ChatGPT, which is very cute, but it's very poor utilization of what the tool can do.
How do you suggest, like, people are day by day, people are becoming very used to it. They're it's not even used to, like, they're dependent on them now.
Yes.
So how do you think, or how do you give it to the people that don't get so used to or so dependent on it? Like, there was a news recently that AI have taken a life because he thought it was his girlfriend.
Yes.
It was a suicidal case. So, what's your thought on that?
No, I mean, if I had a thought, somebody would have already gone out and exercised it. I think it's on us as human beings to do that.
Right.
To let whoever is going off track, just bring the person back on track, saying, do you realize what you're doing?
Yeah.
And maybe, this could be counter to what is the current trend of making it more and more accessible. I'm all for making it accessible.
Yes.
Democratize it, as I would say. But maybe you have to keep some kind of a barrier so that people are just not using it for stupid things. Because AI, I mean, today there's about 55 gigawatts of AI data centers in the world. And in another 5 years, it's supposed to grow fourfold. That's a lot of computing capacity being put in place. And when you think of ROI, you would want it to be used where it's really required. But that's against the current norm of just making it accessible for everyone, for generating images and fake news and fake videos and babies talking like adults.
Yeah, we've seen
it's not a very good.
Coming back again to our, like, similar to our generational shift, we have noticed there's a workforce, like you said, but then as you started and today's gen, so there's a huge gap between both of them. So your understanding, according to, like, where are we moving ahead?
Like we said earlier, each generation brings their own characteristics and they will keep evolving, and we should not judge. We should just encourage and give guidance, whatever is minimally required, so our kids and their kids go forth and do the right thing. One of the things which I would give as general advice to all youngsters coming up, based on my own experience of several years ago, is go easy on the arrogance. So when I came out of Kharagpur, I actually joined Kharagpur from class 11. Because it was a second last 5-year batch, so you could still apply for it without clearing 10 plus 2. So I got through in class 11. At Kharagpur, I was academically not too bad. I was again I used to play the violin and I was again decently good at it. Then from the campus, I got the EIL job. I got the final call for Hindustan Lever. In my time, those were of the top 5 most coveted jobs, Hind Lever, EIL, and 3 others. And then I got into EIL. A lot of my work was in refining. And I did whatever I did a certain way, and I built some credentials very quickly. So oil companies would actually ask for me to be put on their projects by name, and several of them later on became directors, managing directors of these companies, and we re reconnected. But at that time, all of this, it went to my head a bit. So I was very brash and very arrogant. I would just, do things my way, or, this is not up to the mark. So I was somewhat rough with people. Now, some people got it. Some people got it. They loved working for me. Some of them, even when I left DIL and joined another company, they also joined later, and they're doing very well. But when I look back, I realize that through this process, I rubbed a number of people the wrong way. And maybe my experience would have been a lot more rounded, and my image out there would be a little easier if I were not arrogant. There's always some amount of self-confidence which you need. You have to feel good about the work we do, but yeah, not be arrogant. So that would be my, the gyan from the hills, as I often say, that of course you will be good at something that you're passionately pursuing, but don't take yourself too seriously.
Good discussion as of now. So, if you could go back to 1984 when you graduated from IIT Kharagpur, what advice would you give your younger self?
I have never been somebody who regrets, um, but the advice I would give would be probably one of the life advices that, and we can always discuss later. But the main advice would be to be very clear in your head about what you ultimately want in life. What would you want to be remembered for? Because then you can temper your actions and your choices towards that. When we are young, we don't look too far beyond. And when you look at younger generations, that ability or that willingness is also probably reducing. So I would just really focus on that. There has to be one true north, as they say. Figure that out. Don't let somebody dictate it to you, and then be consistent with it.
Have recently gone through your write up in LinkedIn. So you have mentioned very nicely about perfection and like, okay, let me put it like this: is striving for a perfection is a strength, or do you think that it's a risk of becoming a weakness in a time which, like, in this time driven world?
Yeah, so the essence really is the time driven world, like a time constrained community, whether it's owners building facilities or a movie production crew going and shooting a movie. So if you go back to Michelangelo and told him that it need not be perfect, the Sistine Chapel, just do whatever you can, but do it in so many months, he may not have agreed in the first place. But if he did agree, you will probably not get the Sistine Chapel or the David that you see today, which is, after so many hundreds of years, you look at it and you just marvel at how it was done in those times with whatever tools people had at that time. So now, for me, before I wrote that LinkedIn post, I was wondering, is it a conflict for people like myself, where there's a musician in me which wants to render something very well, and the project manager in me that has to deliver? So the musician in me was also a bit of a problem when I was younger, because now I started learning when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And then by the time I went to college, I had done my Sangeet Prabhakar. I was performing, not professionally, but I was giving recitals. And at, in my college years, if I took part in a music competition, intra-college, or whatever, then I would win. That really was how it was. But the thing that always bothered some people is if I hadn't done my riyaz regularly, I would not perform. Now, when it comes to something like a competition, so you have a date and you prepare towards it. And a lot of the preparation would be, fitting things in within the time. So in a competition, you have this many minutes, you have to finish within those many minutes. So a lot of it will be perfection within that time constraint. Because the level I had reached, thanks to the tutelage of my guru, is I would create a lot of the music right there. So the mukra is something and everything else. And I would still have to finish it within that time. And there was one time when I was just called late night by the college saying, the director is coming tomorrow to visit. We would like you to give a recital. And I said no, because I hadn't had any riyaz for 4 weeks. And the president didn't understand it at all and said, you're a perfectionist. I said, well, music has to be perfect. So that often probably is to get in conflict with the project manager side of me, where I've always believed in doing things right. I've always believed that our engineering degree is kind of a social license that we should responsibly exercise. Therefore, anything we make, when you sign, it should be, in my vocabulary, meeting everything, which means it's perfect. Now, today, with in the project world, a project which could be earlier done in 60 months today is being done in 36 because the cost of time is huge. So therefore, the focus is on getting progress, which means a drawing has to go out, a spec has to go out, something has to be purchased by this date, else we cannot meet the schedule. And the parameters we then look at a management or executive level are numbers, right? So they are schedule numbers and quantities. And there is a saying that when you make something important into a key performance indicator, it stops being of use, because people will find ways to work around and show you what is good, because that's what you want to see. So the stress is then transferred to the working levels because they are having insufficient information or immature information to push something out. If somebody says there could be a problem in this, the mid-level supervisor will not let the person speak. So therefore, there's this risk that gets transmitted because nobody is allowed to speak. And in the end, it can lead to a fatality, it can lead to rework. And the whole point is, if you look at all the recent instances, like I mentioned, they're never because somebody did a calculation wrong. It was always because there was risk transmitted below the surface with nobody allowed to speak about it. So for me, if there is a way that the risk of taking an early decision is properly understood, embraced, and then you move forward, it's okay. But if, when insisting that you should at least meet these minimum requirements, and then you're told you're a perfectionist, that to me is an excuse. But that's a problem probably closer to my heart, because I think Veenu probably has seen a picture of me, peeling a pineapple. Well, you have to respect what nature created for you. So to me, it's almost like that I'll not just do it shoddily, I just can't do it.
That's what we learn from you.
It'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Going back to the generational shift which we were talking about, because we want to know more about Gen Z, because from you, it's a great time we have got that where we can take your thoughts. What is your observation on that? Like, how do you observe the changes?
I'm glad you asked that. So again, in the way I distill things into a few manageable bites, I would characterize the current generation as one where patience has gone down and confidence has gone up.
Absolutely.
So in our हमारे ज़माने से, in our times, we had a lot of ways in which we occupied ourselves. You didn't have the Internet of Things. You were still in a largely manual-driven world. There was some automation in some sectors at the back. But for everything, you had to go in and invest your personal time and presence. So you would have to go to the bank and stand in a queue to withdraw cash from the teller. You would go to a movie hall to see a movie and
Buy a ticket.
maybe watch a 5-hour movie with just one interval, which I have, which is Peter Brook's Mahabharata. We spent 5 full days doing a hand calculation on a distillation column. But some of the insights which I got doing that, it just stayed with me through the rest of my life, because it's only when you do trial and error and doing it manually, you get a sense of how this whole system really works. We would more often than not take the train from Delhi to Mumbai. There was that time that you then spent in that ecosystem and interacting with fellow travelers. So a natural corollary of that was we would always have the patience to take things to their logical end and not rush things through. So that's something that has really gone away, because these days, with all this quick consumption of information, everything has to be done in a rush. If you have things which will take time, you will lose the audience. And what it is then leading to is the result of half-cooked decisions, or relationships breaking down, or project outcomes breaking down, because patience is not there. On the flip side, people are a lot more self-assured. They have way more information that they are able to digest, so their decisions are based on a lot more of verifiable information, which is a good thing. So people are a lot more confident. But downside of that also is there's just so much misinformation also in the whole mix, that it starts then polarizing opinions, polarizing groups, which is again counterproductive to getting team outcomes. So the confidence which all this availability and digital tools and all of these that they are helping also has this downside which the generation is falling into, which they have to watch out for.
So, how do you encourage innovation and collaboration across diverse teams and geographies?
So my answer would be speed and active listening. Speed is the essence, absolute essence. You cannot have somebody's coming up with an outrageous ideas, and then you put the bureaucracy on that person's head, that okay, this is the idea, you now fill a form, and then it should go and get reviewed. Then there'll be an umbrella body, apex body, that will look at it, and you have to find a way to justify the return on that is investment. That is, if your idea costs us so much, then in how much time would we recoup that cost? And that absolutely kills any spirit of innovation, because whoever had an outrageous idea will now think twice, because you've just put this whole bureaucracy in front of that poor person. So speed is the thing. If somebody has this idea, call up that person. Let that person just speak extempore on video and say, this is what I think this can do. And this is, I think, what the benefits we will get as an organization or as a team. I have no idea about the ROI, but it just looks as some way we can challenge the status quo. So that has to be coupled with active listening. So whoever is then getting that idea in, shouldn't be listening with the idea of responding, but listening with the idea of understanding. And the person has to be open-minded about it.
Yeah.
That there will be criticism, other people will question. Okay, if you need input of a few other experts from somewhere else, go ahead and get it. Exercise that active listening, but do not throw the originator of the idea under the bus. And you should not ever try to put an ROI on an innovation, because it'll delegate innovation to something being incremental. That something is working all right today, it'll incrementally give me this much efficiency. That really is not innovation. It is just you're tempering something or modifying something to better outcome. So that would be my thing. Many enterprises are just not understanding it. The big ones are, of course, Apple and others. They are big examples of where their whole motto is fail fast and fail frequently. That has to be the mantra. The other aspect is to know that today everything is across geographies. If you look at something which is an innovation, it will need teams working in different countries and different cultures to make it succeed. Now, what invariably happens is there is conflict which then starts coming in. So there'll always be this thing about pushbacks, about undermining another person's idea because the person comes from a different, ethnic group.
Yes.
So what it ends up then doing is creating this environment where collaboration cannot exist. So the leader has to make it clear that innovation can only survive if it encourages diversity and inclusion of thought and of all communities. And if the leader makes it clear, everybody else will then find the right kind of people will jump in and they will make innovation and collaboration succeed.
So, one guiding principle what you want to give to the next generation?
So we talked about the true north as something they have to really figure out quick enough. But the one sustaining thing that everyone, especially our impatient next gen, must keep in their minds that the primary responsibility that you have as an individual is towards your family. That comes above everything else. That comes above your job, your profession, your extracurricular activities, your project deadlines, your project stress. We often lose sight of that very simple fact that the main social responsibility that we have is towards our families, and everything else that you do is in support of that objective. If people stay true to this, families will strive and succeed and thrive together. Teams will succeed together. If everybody in the team understands that this team will put person A's family obligations on a higher priority than sending something out on a Friday, because everything is planned and can be done in advance. And the example I have often quoted to my teams is this, that many years ago I was in a company in the US where we were getting trained in their processes, tools, and technologies, and then we were to come back to India and perform that engineering design from our offices here. So while I was there, I was the lead engineer for a given unit, and a review of the P&IDs was scheduled for the third week of May. My wife and daughter were going to visit me from India, so I scheduled it so that after the review is over, we'll go down to Disney World, SeaWorld, and have a 2-week vacation. And I bought the tickets in advance. I booked the resort, Vistana Resort. I still remember the name, in advance. And with about a week to go for the review, the customer said they are delaying the review by 2 weeks.
Oh.
To fall exactly when I was going to be in Florida. And I am the lead engineer. I was the one who was supposed to go put all the drawings on the wall and then walk the client through every facility that's on those drawings. So I had to do it. So I went to the project manager of the technology licensing company and I said, Mike, this is what's happened. So I'll cancel my vacation plan. And he said, no. And he said exactly this thing which I said. He said, you must never lose sight of the fact that your family is priority one. I said, who will present it? He said, I will. So that's the thing. I get a little emotional about it because it resonated with me so well. You know, in my entire career, I have never canceled anybody's leave. Absolutely. And that's something we lose sight of.
Why are women so underrepresented in EPC industry after so many changes and after so many years?
This is a question where a lot of the answers you will get from industry leaders is, oh, it's a simple supply and demand problem. You do not have enough women coming in through the education system, and therefore you do not have enough of them joining the workforce. And then we try to explain away what is a very fundamental problem. It is true that fewer women are getting into engineering, which really then leads to EPC professional as taking wing. But are we doing enough to solve that problem first? There's a bigger problem later on because, well, if that were true, we should have 18% as the minimum representation across all levels if companies were actually then sustaining a culture where women can thrive and survive. But the part A of it, of making it going out there and letting families understand that EPC or other engineering, I'm not just restricting myself to EPC, the engineering is still a good fundamental calling. It's a foundation that a person can get into. A woman can get into it and decide to do something else later, but the foundation would be very strong if they got into engineering in the first place. So there are some positives. I mean, some companies are going out and then hiring from all women colleges. Quite a few of them are now in Rajasthan, this some of the northern states. So that absolutely has to continue beyond being lip service. Because once you get them in, the culture has to be where they do not face intended or unintended harassment, sarcasm at work. There were instances like these that during my time that came to me and I shut them out. And I shut them out real quick. That is really so fundamental. So once you have that nurturing mechanism, I'll give you an example. When a woman is carrying, why does she have to disconnect from work? Even through the maternity leave, when the young one is just coming into this world, why does she have to be disconnected from work, from the meetings, and with all the means today to still keep them engaged with the rest of the team so that when she comes back, she's not seen as, oh, now she has come back? Because that feeling has to go away that she went away at all in the first place. We must do beyond lip service this thing as leaders, where anybody who is slyly trying to undermine women's work, stealing their credit, any other bad mouthing of any kind, it has to be stopped right then and there. Then you can have 18% gradually going up and then increasing in numbers. When you do it as a KPI, it doesn't work. So in the US, there's a lot of success being claimed that at a C-suite level, there are now more women. What is hidden, it's published information, so anybody can find out, is for every woman who makes it to the C-suite, 2 women are quitting. So just getting them in there is not the point. Including them is the point.
Yeah.
So, and it can't be done just by writing a few things here and there. People have to do it in practice. there are reputed organizations in India like the Tatas that are really, really making a difference. And they show it is possible. I hope it inspires others.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I really like to compliment the two of you for coming up with this topic and idea of Techfluence.
Sure.
What I really like about the vibe so far is that it's not being run as some massive initiative with scale and sponsorship and all of that, because that takes away a lot of the essence which is there, which you get only in this kind of conversation sitting together, where the messages and the conversations are a lot more personal. The physical distance is not there, which is again something that doesn't work on a big stage. So it's wonderful where you will have, I'm sure, many more industry leaders come here and share insights which they otherwise wouldn't on a bigger platform. And then I wish you all the success in getting the kind of traction back from young professionals, EPC industry or otherwise, who see leaders giving them their insights, leaders who are giving them input that will help them rather than judge them, and make them feel welcome to the industry and industries like EPC, which are hard industries at the end of the day, but we need more talent and we need diversity of representation across gender, across ethnicity, across languages. And India can be such a wonderful place where all of these can come together. So I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Vijay.
much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And this is such a lovely and rich
True.
conversation today. Thank you.
True.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and send us your thoughts.